Oh, boy.
Okay.
I may have dumped it.
Okay.
It looked awful.
Okay.
It was vinyl. It looked cheap.
Okay.
It looked cheap.
Okay. Well,
And I got to thinking, I'm driving this nice car around with this crummy looking
cover on it.
It must be gone because it's not there with my stuff. If you notice, my stuff was all right there together for the car.
And the gentleman you bought it from, what was his last name again? In Florida?
Michael Sierra. His name did not appear on the title. It was Bill Lassiter. And I talked to Lassiter's wife about it. Lassiter was died, and she didn't remember it. But he had a big collection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lassiter had a big collection.
Yeah.
Nice collection.
Yeah. I know. I should have bought. He had a 1906 National for sale. It had been messed with. It's the only six National in existence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was going to sell it, and I hemmed and hawed, and then it disappeared. I know where it went though, but yeah.
Now Sierra took the car all overseas.
Yeah, I saw
He
it.
didn't
Was it
even
in
have his
Ireland?
name on the title.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
Any of us try and pull that off.
Yeah, we'd
but
be
of
in
course
jail.
he was an attorney and he got away with it.
He probably had Bill Lassiter sign something
Yeah.
that he could borrow it or
I suppose, I don't know.
Whatever.
But when I got the car, it had the stickers on the windshield.
Oh, from Ireland and stuff, where they'd taken it overseas.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
I have
was-
pictures of it. I have a picture of it. I found a picture in an old Gazette when it was in Ireland.
All right, yeah. Then Sierra told me, I asked what kind of condition it was, and all he says, I hope that you enjoy this car as much as we ever enjoyed it. What I found out was I took it on the first trip with Conweiser,
Uh-huh.
and we went to that big mountain up here in on the way east, Albuquerque,
Oh, okay.
and that's a steep mountain, and all the television towers are up there. As you drive east on 40, you look them up there on the top of that mountain. Anyway, on the way down, you couldn't see any of the cars behind me. The smoke screen I threw this car, it was awesome. You couldn't see anything in the valley, and I thought, they're going to send the police after me. There's a limit, and it's way beyond. So I realized this is bad. This is really bad. So then I had to start getting into the engine, and the bearings were just fine, but the rings were toast. It ended up that the pistons were fine, but the bore had so much taper in it.
Yeah.
And it had been sleeved, and the sleeves were all worn out. So what it ended up being, I put new total seal rings in it, which it has, and it's been just fine, and new sleeves, and then it needed valves, and I searched around, and they're tractor valves, not John Deere, but one of the other major ones. And in fact, I told Don Eller that had bought one because I was so pleased with the car, even with this and that he bought one, and he bought the green one down in...
Yeah, Keen Brewer has that car now.
Yeah.
Well, in Fallbrook.
He bought the green one, and I said, I got the specs on the valves, and you're not pleased quite 100% with your engine. If you want, I'll go back in Michigan and to that tractor dealer, and I'll buy a set of valves for you. and that set of valves was never installed in that car.
Well,
So Susie should have given him those valves.
well,
If
we're
she
gonna,
could
we're gonna
find
see
them
Keen
in,
tomorrow.
if she could find them in the garage.
Yeah, yeah,
Or if he did, and maybe indeed they got them done.
yeah, or something.
Yeah, but time went on, and Don got, you know.
Alzheimer's,
And then,
yeah.
yes, and so he didn't drive it anymore. And she drove their classics. I don't think she drove it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
the story was that she had the guys in the shop put a power steering unit in so she could try to drive it, and she tried it one time and couldn't do it.
She's a trooper.
So
She's
they
a
put it
trooper.
back. So we'll,
Yeah.
we'll see that car tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a set of valves that came with that. They're tempered valves and just the correct stuff. The very same valves in this car,
Yeah.
your car now.
When you decided, can I ask you, why did you decide to buy it? What was when you went out looking, were you looking for a Pope Hartford, or were you just looking for a big touring car and that's what you found?
Along the way, somebody said, you ought to have a Pope Hartford. You know, I had a nice collection of, I had an EMF. And I was always unhappy. It wasn't as peppy as other EMFs. I wanted something with more funk. And somebody told me, you ought to get that kind of car. And so I ran into Sierra, and he had two of them for sale. So I said, well, I'll have to come down to Florida sometime and see you. Well, hell, I was working then. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, take time off to wear a Florida vacation
Yeah.
from a job. So I'll come down there sometime, you know, but sometime didn't come. And then I ran into him, or I called him, and he said, I sold the one. And I have bought Rolls Royce. And he didn't say it's a better car.
Yeah.
But I can see now that he had trouble with his car.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was dumping this car on me that needed a whole bunch of stuff. It needed work.
Yeah.
And like he told me, they've had a great time.
Yeah.
But maybe they didn't change the oil.
Yeah. Or
And
keep
maybe
it
they
up.
didn't do this and that you're gonna do it because you're gonna care for it.
Yeah.
You know, and anyway, he had sold one, and then of all things, I ran into him at Hershey, and here he was driving around in the mud, and I said, you and I need to make a deal, and so we made a deal right there at Hershey, and he sent his son with his trailer to my garage in Michigan and picked up my EMF and dropped off the Pope. And so when I got home from Hershey, the Pope was sitting in my garage.
Oh, that's pretty good timing.
He and I worked out something,
Yeah.
or I don't remember what, but anyway, it
So
satisfied.
you traded in the EMF.
I traded the EMF, and then a friend of mine in Michigan Brass and Gas called me, dentist in Birmingham, Michigan, and he said, Ken, we were in Florida, and there's a car that looks just like yours sitting in a field outside in the weather, at that flea market place. And I said, that makes sense, because Sierra was starting to run a flea market. He figured he could rent all those spaces out to all us collectors, and we'd pay him. And there it was in his property, sitting outside. Well, he said, you liked that car, it was good, but it was never that peppy. There's something maybe he's wrong with it. Well, anyway, he bought it. This is an aside now. He bought the EMF. He had somebody tear the engine down, and no wonder he reported to me the pistons were short. And no wonder it didn't run as good as other EMFs.
Didn't have as much compression.
EMFs are peppy little cars.
Right.
And this one was never peppy because, of course, the pistons were short. Back to back to Pope. So where are we here now?
No, I just want you. So someone said, Ken, you should have a Pope Hartford someday.
And so I
And
had
you
it.
sort of figured it out.
So I
made
had it.
happen, Yeah.
But right away I found the oil thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then within on the second maybe of Conweiser's tour, because it was Colorado, and we went up that long
Pikes Peak.
no.
Oh no, there's the one.
Independence Pass, maybe.
There's a.
Now hang on, I got a shirt. You should have.
Yeah, there's a.
Conweiser made us a shirt.
Is there still a Pope hat in the back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For this car.
I think there's. I think there might be two of them.
Okay. I think he said because he's the one for you and Cheryl.
Pause.
Your guys.
Okay.
I survived driving our Pope Hartford over 12 something Independence Pass.
12,000.
Oh, 12,000.
12,000.
12,095 feet.
Now,
Independence Pass.
so I went up, all the way up in second or third gear. You couldn't shift. It was steep. And when you went down the other side, did the transmission rattle?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So now I'd gone through the engine, and
Now it's
the
time for the
troubles were
transmission.
not over. How's this?
That's pretty cool too.
That fit you?
Heck yeah. Well,
There you go. Nice. Beautiful.
Well, anyway.
these are great stories. Thank you for.
So, coming down the other side, the transmission rattled real bad. And the fix from the transmission was that the bearings were brass. And so there was a guy, a machinist here in the neighborhood, and he said, "You don't have any oil grooves." So the parts you just got
Yeah.
are worn where there are no oil grooves. And he ordered some, not brass,
Like bronze, maybe.
high grade stuff to machine new bushings out of for that transmission. And he ordered like a foot long bar, and UPS left it out here on my front porch, and with a label on it, just
Okay. Whatever.
yeah, it's about 3 inches around and only about a foot long. And I went to pick it up, I couldn't lift it. It escapes me at the moment.
What, the brand? I mean, the type of material?
It's a
Phosphorus bronze?
It's
Or
it's
magnesium
bronze.
bronze.
It's bronze.
Yes,
which
bronze.
He said that's what that car should have, and it
Yeah.
has.
Yeah,
bronze.
brass is not a bearing material
Yeah.
per se. They have to have
Yeah.
bronze.
Yeah.
And most bronzes have another alloy like magnesium.
Sometimes
or
they
phosphorus
have
and-
oilite.
Yeah, oilite isn't
But
as good
this-
because
this-
it's crumbly.
This was bronze.
Yep.
And the key to it is putting in oil grooves. Oil grooves.
Yeah.
Which
That car has.
those are fine for machining new stuff. If somebody in the Pope world, there's all the gears
Yeah.
for a Model W.
Yeah. There's a 1911 fire truck that a gentleman back east bought, and it had lost the Pope engine, so they're gonna build an engine.
They can cast a case
Yeah.
to hold those gears, and then the specs on those gears, they know what to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Perfect.
and you got the samples.
Yeah, those are great patterns to have.
Yeah.
You don't have to
And-
guess
and
what
they've
it's supposed to
proven
be.
their worth
Yeah.
because these years were made, and they're working out just fine.
Yeah.
I've been with you in the car before, but you haven't even used the clutch to shift.
Yeah, you know you want to be careful with that.
Yeah.
You don't want to nick them. You
Yeah.
know, these are, you got to remember. Those gears cost me more than my first house. So,
Yeah, no, I get it.
my second house. Wow. So treat them with respect.
Oh, I will,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah, don't go clashing the gears.
No, I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that. How many tours did you take it on? Did you do a lot of touring?
Conweiser had a tour every year.
Yeah.
And we went all over the country. And then someone told Conweiser, he's a guy that used to step up to a challenge, that you cannot take antique cars into Manhattan. Oh, yeah? And so we started at, whose son is working on a Pope right now.
Dick
King? Dick King.
We
Dick
started at Dick King's
Reading,
house.
Connecticut. Yep.
Yeah.
We parked our trailers there, and we went all along the river
Mm-hmm.
toward Manhattan. And then when you get ready to go across like a 7-lane bridge into Manhattan, there is a motel on the right. We had a brass car dinner there, and people from the whole area came by invitation, and we all shared the evenings. Very nice.
Mhm.
And then we were to be up early in the morning because they were going to get 2 police cruisers, close off a lane of that 7-lane bridge that
Yeah.
somebody got permission. That's the bridge that some congressman closed down once, and then there was a big yay-ho about. Anyway, so anyway, on signal, we were sitting there, and I think there were like 7 of us. And the way we went across the bridge, and Conweiser told us, when you get to the end of the bridge, at the bottom, you turn right and go along the parkway. There is a parkway at the south end of Manhattan Island. And he said, if you don't go right, we'll never see you again. So that's what we did. And then eventually we ended up at Leona Helmsley's hotel. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a towel from the place, from a different source, Leona Helmsley's hotel. Anyway, there was a door that would open, and only 2 of us were to be there along that street, and there was a steel door would go up, and we were to drive in, only 2. So we
2
did
at a time?
2 by 2.
Yeah.
And then we will go up, right, to somewhere. We didn't. We went down. Did you know that? We went down.
Into the basement.
Down. You know, man, I guess Manhattan is deep there. We sure didn't expect to go down. We expected to go up in an elevator.
Yeah.
It went down. And we were cautioned about don't run your engines, you know, because it's smelly.
Yeah.
So we drove off, and there was parking there for half a dozen cars, and there was a way of getting back upstairs. And then 2 more came in. I don't remember whether we were all on the same level or not. There wasn't a whole lot of room on each level, and there were other cars around.
The secret parking area.
And then Conweiser took us to some high-dollar dinner. What you noticed was they didn't have tablecloths. They had all men waiters, the big, long, shiny tables. And then we went to see a Broadway play. And we had seats for this Broadway play. And then we spent the night at Leona Helmsley Hotel, which was very nice.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, we drove out out of there, and we went through, there's a black area after we left Manhattan. And all these people with gold teeth, yo man, at every traffic light, you know, they really appreciated us.
Yeah. Never
And-
seen
and-
anything like that.
And we went way out and we had lunch at the nicest old collection of brass cars at an old time car collector's house out Manhattan, out Manhattan Island. And then when we left his place for lunch, we went out a little further and we were at the tip of the island. And there's a little park out there. Did you know that? So we got pictures. Somebody took pictures of us out there in their
In the park, yeah.
out there. And then that we came back down to a place opposite. It was Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Dragoon
where they made Bridgeport
Mills.
Mills.
Yeah,
But of course they don't make it anymore. You know?
Right.
That's all made in China or something.
right.
Yeah.
And then we took that ferry across and we went back to Dick King's and had a wonderful lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We were there, we went to Hershey and we went to Dick's place and met his restorer, Ollie, and went through all the cars and I think he has 5 Pope Harfords before.
When we were there, he had a guy working for him who ended up running his own shop in California.
So is it Stu? Yeah, Stu Laidlaw.
Maybe.
Laidlaw.
Yeah.
Laidlaw
Yeah,
was
Stu
working
Laidlaw.
for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And there was some controversy there.
Oh, yeah.
And along the way, I have owned a 1910 Oakland. And when I was first here, there was a guy in Horses Carriage Club, at the local Horses Carriage Club meetings. He would complain about his Oakland that looked so nice, that had been restored by Laidlaw. It was made to look nice, but it was very much on the needy side.
Yeah.
It needed all this stuff. And one thing led to another, and I said, I'll buy the damn thing from you. And I bought it and I dealt with it, you know. That's my long suit.
Yeah, fix it up.
It's fixing these problems
Yeah.
on these cars.
Yeah.
And then I lose interest when they get all fixed. And there you are.
This is wonderful stuff. How do you turn the lights on?
The lights?
The headlights. They have a bulb in them, right? Is there a little switch?
Yes, there's a white knob,
Okay.
right?
Right by the starter
Right
cleaning?
down there by the starter.
Okay.
That's the headlights.
Okay.
Now that has excellent lights.
Yeah, you
It
showed
has
me.
tail lights and turn signals. And it's good sized bulbs, you saw it, you know. So you got brake lights and you got safety.
Yeah.
So when you go out, when people go out for dinner at night, when you're on tour,
Yeah.
you can get back. You got good strong headlights and tail lights, so you're safe.
Yeah. That's the
And you
good
got
idea.
turn signals.
Do you have to turn the turn signal off? Does it go off after a certain period or always stays on until you click it over?
What?
The turn signal. So you click it over to make a turn. Do you have to reach down and put it in the center? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
You bring it back.
Yeah, yeah.
And you,
Right.
you do it the other way.
Yeah, you told me it's
And
opposite.
you're reminded of that when you park it and you put it away, put the turn signal on,
So that you can tell the battery.
and then you shut the battery off. And when you shut the battery on again, your turn signals are blinking. This tells you a whole lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Tells you the battery's connected and you're,
And then also when you park it and you go in the house, you see it blinking back there, you go back there because
You
it's
forgot to
still
turn the
turned
battery
on, aren't you?
yes.
Okay, this is all part of safety with
Yeah,
these
no.
darn cars.
I know there's a little horn in there. Is there a little horn button down there too? There's like a little electric horn hanging up below
There's
the frame.
a little electric horn down there.
Yeah. What
That's
makes
out
it?
of a Plymouth.
Okay.
A Plymouth you know,
The Roadrunner? It sounds
Roadrunner.
like a, sounds
it's a
like
Roadrunner
Oh,
horn.
okay. Is there a little button down there too to make that work? What makes that work?
Yes, and that works that horn.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I bought that at a Plymouth dealer, and I remember there was a manager standing there, and the parts guy, it was kind of quiet except for that. And there was something I heard over my shoulder. Here's another crazy guy buying one of those
Yeah.
Roadrunner horns. You
Perfect.
know, you were younger then, I guess, or something.
Oh, you always gotta have
I've
a
had
fun
that
horn.
horn for a long time.
Yeah.
That's something you have a joke with. you
Yeah,
know?
no, I like that kind of stuff too.
Beep beep.
Beep, beep.
I really think, I mean, I think that's it. I think you gave me we've talked about everything else.
Now it's filled with avgas.
Okay? And that's what you ran in it. Is there antifreeze in the radiator?
There's antifreeze, it's 50%,
Okay, perfect. Because we're gonna go cold.
and there's 1540 oil in it.
Okay, non-detergent.
No.
Detergent.
Detergent, okay.
Detergent. Now this car's all been rebuilt with new total seal rings. You use modern oil.
Okay,
You haven't got to the point of putting synthetic in though. It's just regular oil, not synthetic oil like Mobil One or any of that. Or do you know?
I'm not a big fan of Mobil One. My God. you
Yeah.
know, well,
But the price is almost the same now.
Well, the price on it is so darn high, and
Well-
you really should. You know, there's a bunch of collectors that say keep using that same old oil. You know, the oil engineers, we don't have a filter.
yeah,
Right.
You need to change your oil because the oil picks up all the contaminants,
Right.
and they're circulating,
right.
and they're not doing our bearings any good.
Yeah,
So on a regular basis, you change oil.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know you change oil when how much you put in there.
Yeah, I have that spec. It's in that pamphlet, it's in front of your seat too.
Yeah.
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 And now speaking of the seat, there's a thing. There's some webs there to put your tour book.
Yep.
In
Yep.
the passenger seat.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay. And then there's some kind of private storage when you lift the passenger seat.
well, there's a
You
little
know,
box under there.
you're on tour somewhere, and you got stuff with you, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. You don't want people picking up on you. I had that.
And the battery's
car-
under the back seat? Yeah,
No, there's all kinds of stuff under the back seat for
Okay.
jacks and all that.
yeah,
And the battery's back there.
Okay.
That's a good battery. Okay, and that, the switch.
Yep. I turned it off.
And, so anyway, back to under that front seat, you can put some kind of valuables under there. I don't think there's anything particularly out of the ordinary, but what you'll find that you love these cars. These cars are great cars.
Yeah.
You're right there. You got, okay?
I'm ready.
You're ready.
I'm ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're gonna
It's,
find
it's
that's
not
a
gonna
great
sit
car.
around very much.
Yeah,
We're gonna go drive.
I was on a tour with that car in Michigan at a lunch, up in the northern part of Michigan at the Antlers place. There's they treat old car people nice. It's a restaurant called the Antlers in the middle of nowhere, up in the upper tip of Michigan.
Up in the thumb.
Anyway.
Yeah.
My tour book, I left on the seat of the car. I came out from lunch.
Somebody
My
took it?
tour book was gone. Oh my God, and we were a long way from home.
Yeah, you don't know what direction to turn.
That was with Midwest Brass and Gas,
Yeah,
and the tour director was really nice. It was Bud Jonas's wife. she gave me her book. She said, we're a long ways from home, and we've got some twists and turns to do on the way home because it's going to be a different route. She gave me the tour book. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Who expects that? You know, you kind of want to. I left it innocently
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the seat.
Sure.
with the car like
Who
it-
wants it?
Who would want it?
Who wanted it? Somebody
Has no
somebody
value.
lifted my
Zero.
book.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was that car at noon.
Yeah.
At Antler's Restaurant. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember.
Well, that's it, my friend. I'm excited.
Great.
Okay.
I hope you enjoy it.
I will.
I can tell you as much as Sierra said, I hope you enjoy as much as I have.
I think.
And you should have a whole lot less trouble than I had.
Thank you.
You didn't ask me about, there was a guy who was a machinist here that ended up, it was Cadillac Jack's private engine rebuilder. It came from Kansas. And he lost his job. There was a belt outfit, Goodyear, made conveyor belts. And when those jobs went away overseas, he was out of it. He was plant manager, he was plant engineer. And he ended up at Cadillac, working for Cadillac Jack over here. And so he redid the driveline in this car. And Mike and I were talking about, you know, it's 90, 180.
Yeah.
It's 89, 91, on around that car. So that's all remade,
It's all
the
done.
way it was made originally,
Yeah.
okay? And they're all new. And then we got to looking at the clutch linkage. And the clutch linkage, when you look down there, and all that stuff that makes a clutch come in and out, there's little round things and there's all that mechanism that has the clutch come in and out of that cone. He remade all that and laid. That's
Wow.
all new.
So it's all tight and good.
Yeah.
Did it always have the little ring there to hold the clutch out, or did you put that in?
I put that in.
Yeah.
I put that in, and that's important.
Yeah.
You know, because you always want to deal with that, because you don't want to squeeze that Nate's foot oil out of that leather.
Yep.
And when I got that car, the leather was bad, and he took me down to a place here in Phoenix, a leather place, and we went in with the leather from that
Yeah, yeah.
thing, and it was about this long, you know.
Sort of like shaped like a
And
moon.
it's kind of, it swirls, you know, and he said something to the guy, and he said, "You don't want this, that." He opened up a thing down underneath for cowboys, for saddles,
Yeah.
saddles, and
Saddle
all
leather.
that. That's what the guy said. That's what you want, and so he made it new. And I was telling Mike, there are recessions in the cone, but there was nothing in it.
Well, they used to have a little spring back there, or something, a piece of
Yeah,
cork or something.
So he looked in a catalog for the right diameter and the right amount of compression, and ordered them, and they stuck them in the cone, and they press up, and so it gives you that nice soft clutch
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you've got.
That's very nice.
And so you don't go pounding that clutch. You treat it with respect. And it'll last
The
you.
very first antique car I ever had a cone clutch. It was a 1915 Dort.
Door.
It's in the Nethercutt collection now.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's made. Dort was made in downtown Flint.
By Michigan, yes sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first got into antique cars, there was a guy, High Right, and he had been a top man at Buick, and his foreman got a couple of those guys, and they would go over to Dort and top a car on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And whatever Dort had, Dort was a slow-moving
Yeah,
operation.
yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
tiny little company.
High Right was a part of the crew that he called it top it. You know, we would say make a top.
Yeah,
He would, they
You say
would,
top it.
whatever open cars they had, they would top them
On the weekend.
on the weekend, on
Yeah,
their day
yeah,
off.
Yeah. Make
As-
a
as
little
an
cash.
employee of Buick,
Sure.
but his foreman had gotten what was a sub for Dort. Dort was not a rip-roaring place.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
not, they were a tiny little company.
Yeah, there was a guy in Flint that had one, in the Flint AACA, he had one. What I remember about him was, you know, we can go on forever with this stuff. He ran a hardware store, his wife did all the work, and he did all the talking. He had a Dort, it was a maroon four-door.
Yeah,
That car's still around
yeah,
somewhere.
oh, I'm sure. They don't go away, we talked about that last night at dinner, they don't go away, they just move around.
Yeah.
No one scraps a Pope Hartford. Somebody's gonna buy it.
Were any popes lost in fires
To
here
the
lately?
best of my knowledge, no. I mean, we're gonna kind of see most of the West Coast guys here in the next couple days. We're gonna go, a couple people are coming to Keens, and then we're gonna have lunch with Ted and Bill Nance and
Say
another
hello
group
to
of
them.
Yeah, for sure I will. That's for sure. They all know that we have that on the trailer, so they're looking forward to
Well,
seeing
they
it
wanna
again.
see it,
Yeah, they want to see it again.
and they want you to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think there's a really good network there. I think Ted's squirreled away a bunch of stuff, and there's a project to make new exhaust manifolds, so somebody's going to do that. And somebody already redid rocker arms, so somebody's casting those. And
There was an issue with the water pumps.
yeah, there's Bill Ottoman is coming Monday, and Ted Bowers is going to give him an original water pump, and he's going to rebuild and make them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ottoman's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a great guy for our hobby.
So that little project is going on. So yeah, there's a few little Pope things happening,
Good.
and I know they're trying to get the tour back together. So
Yeah.
revive that. I think John Conweiser is doing the next one. He doesn't have a Pope anymore, but he's still going to do the tour.
Yeah, he's had some health problems.
So I think he and Ted are doing it. Thanks, Ken.
Okay.
I really love the
Good
car.
guy.
Yeah. Thanks for telling me stories and
Yeah.
if I have questions, I'll call you.
Yeah, you want that signed?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. I think that'll be important.